what's up, everyone? Welcome to Check Me. We got I guess, late night edition, early morning edition that's going to come out. Just talking about all the things that have happened in free agency. It's been a wild free agency, and when things kicked off, they kicked off very quick. Someone, I think Sauce Gardner tweeted, it's like Madden fantasy where you just make all the moves that you really want. I want to start off essentially with, of course, Philadelphia signing Saquon Barkley. This is something different than I expected Howie to do. Howie Roseman typically does pull off, we've seen him pull off major deals, bringing in A.J. Brown, bringing in, big names, Kevin Byard, what's the guy's name? Darius Leonard. He's done before, but this is a little bit different just because the running back really wasn't a weak spot for us. We have a deep running backfield with Gainwell, Scott, and Swift. And just to kind of see us go in and pick up Saquon is something different than what we've typically seen how we go and do. I think it's a great addition. The deal goes out to 3 years and $37 million with $26 million fully guaranteed at signing. It's still impeding. I think there's some things that have to work out before it's actually concluded. But I think it's a good pickup for Philadelphia. I think it's something that will, if we utilize him right and not have a heavy load for him, that he can last the whole season and play well. I think he showcased that the last 2 seasons with the Giants, that durability is maybe not a thing that they need to worry about, especially with the load that he was carrying in New York. But I just feel that I like Swift because he was healthy. He wasn't relatively bad. He can run between the tackles. Him and Gainwell were a good 1-2 punch. I hope he retained Gainwell, and we still have Saquon. I'm not sure Gainwell's going to be asking for more money, but I think it'll be a great pickup if he stays healthy. New York just lost a good one. I'm not sure what's going on there. Ever since they did Brian Flores dirty, it has not been well. But Tiki Barber came out, and he said something. He said he's dead to us now. He's dead to us. You're dead to us, Saquon. Barber said with a smile and chuckle upon learning the news, the Evan and Tiki show, good luck, you're dead to me. So basically, Tiki Barber, New York Giant great, New York Giant pretty much Hall of Famer for that team. For him to say that with Saquon is really wild because, first of all, Tiki Barber being a running back and how the game's evolved, where running backs now are being looked at as not a big option to pay out. Running backs are perceived as replaceable, interchangeable, especially in today's game. And I don't think they are, but they're perceived as interchangeable and replaceable. And, they just don't get those big payouts. The game's different back then from when Tiki Barber played, and where running backs were still kind of regarded as an integral part of offense. Not saying they ever were not, but they are an integral part of the offense. But nowadays, the offense has changed, and the perception of running back has changed. For Tiki Barber to come out and say that, especially how running backs have battled over the past couple of years, is just insane. Especially Saquon playing on a franchise tag and risking his whole career and the money that could affect his career over the next couple of, to the rest of his career, getting injured. If Saquon would have got injured playing on the franchise tag, he would have never got a deal. The Giants would have never gave him any money. But he put that risk out, and yet Tiki Barber still has something to say about him not being loyal or playing as hard as he could for the New York Giants. That's insane. Tiki Barber, that's loony. But Saquon responded, and he said this. He said, "You've been a hater since I got to New York. And all the dead to me talk, don't smile in my face when you see me." I really think it's a weak move by Tiki Barber. I personally think that, what Saquon's doing is he's looking out not just for – he wants to win, and he's not looking out for himself. If you look at Saquon last year, he pretty much carried the load. Carried the load. If you look at his numbers, I mean, he was pretty much their only player. If you talk about the Giants, you're not talking about Danny Dimes. You're talking about Saquon Barkley, how he carried that team. He had 280, nearly 300 on the ground. He had almost 1,000. Almost 1,000 on the ground, 962, and almost 300 through the air. 4 touchdowns, 41 receptions to the running back out the backfield. He averaged about about 18, 19 carries per game, more touches. Only fumbled the ball twice in the game. And this season, I mean, he's your sure guy. He played every game this season different than what we saw in the previous seasons when he got injured. But if you even go back to 2002 season, he had 1,300 yards, he had 57 receptions, and he had almost 400 yards. So Saquon for the past 2 years has shown his worth and his value carrying the load for New York Giants. It's preposterous that Tiki Barber comes out and says something like that. I think it just showcases how guys sometimes, athletes get in the media, they just say anything. He's dead to us now. Now, if it's loyalty, he should have stuck it out and played for lesser money. I don't think that's right because New York has nothing right now. Jalen Wyatt's number one. Danny Dimes, who continues to flop. Like, I mean, why will he stay at the Giants and the Giants aren't winning? And they don't want to pay him. And they're putting his body in jeopardy. So it just makes no sense to me why Tiki Barber would say anything. I'm happy Saquon Barkley is with the Philadelphia Eagles. I think it's a great pickup for us, bringing him on. And I think he's going to do wonders for the team. Next up, I wanted to talk about, where is it? Kirk Cousins going to the Falcons. I don't know how to say this, but Kirk Cousins is the biggest thief in the NFL. This guy gets paid consistently for not doing anything throughout his whole career. He is the most mediocre average quarterback that's been equipped with just about everything and has done nothing. And for him to go to Atlanta on a 4-year deal, $100 million guaranteed, $180 million dollar deal is just insane to me. How does this guy keep on robbing franchises? Does Atlanta think that they're going to win a Super Bowl or get close to Super Bowl with Kirk Cousins? Do they really think that? First of all, Kirk Cousins, how old is he? How old is Kirk Cousins? I'm not sure how old he is, but they think that with Kyle Pitts, Drake London, Bijan Robinson, he's literally had Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen. He's had Justin Jefferson. What's the guy they just picked up from Pittsburgh? Whatever the guy's name is. He's had weapons. He's had weapons throughout his whole career. Yet he has been average throughout his whole career. Like Kirk Cousins is not. He's not good. He's not an elite quarterback. He lacks every clutch factor you will want in a quarterback who wins games. He doesn't have it. The fact that Atlanta wants to throw away money and pick him up is just insane to me. I mean, literally, I'm trying to say Riddler's not the answer. All right, and Mariota's not the answer either. I'm not saying those guys are the answer. And Tyler Heineke was not the answer. But Kirk Cousins is not the answer either. And I think that I don't know if I don't know why they're bringing him in. I mean, literally, he's been about average throughout his whole career. And with Minnesota, he was equipped with arguably the best receiver in the game, and he still didn't perform. This guy leads the league in like fourth quarter interceptions, like turnovers, something like that. Like Kirk Cousins once again continues to rob teams in the NFL because the perception of thinking he's good. People think Sam Bradford was bad. No, Kirk Cousins is worse. Kirk Cousins is the biggest thief, and I do applaud him in getting the best deals for himself, whoever his agent is. At the same exact time, it's just confusing to me that Kirk Cousins continues to get paid in this league, and he's done nothing at all. So I'm bewildered by Kirk Cousins getting a deal. It's just crazy to me. Next thing, Jacoby Brissett signs a 1-year deal with the Patriots. I thought that was interesting pickup just because, I don't know if it's an audition. I'm not sure if because they just, Mac Jones went to Jacksonville. He backed up Sam Howell with the Commanders, and a 31-year-old quarterback who's shown glimpses of being that guy, never really played under an offense. He's on a 1-year deal. He might have just signed for just as a backup. I don't think that they look to have long-term plans with Jacoby Brissett, but I think that for a good backup, he's there, And as well, like you trade away Mac Jones, so I mean he's not going there just to be a backup. He's going there, to be a starter. And I think I'm not sure what pick the Patriots have. Not sure what pick they have, but I do anticipate them getting a quarterback and then possibly transitioning Jacoby Brissett to him and to this backup quarterback, depending on how well they do, instead of throwing the backup quarterback in there like they did Mac Jones and then not giving any time to develop. Nowadays they take quarterbacks and they just throw them in as starters as opposed to allowing them to earn their stripes and develop under a system. That's different. Like you have guys they go into a system and they go in and they do well. You think the best quarterbacks in the game, they sat. All the quarterbacks in the game, they sat. Patrick Mahomes sat behind Alex Smith. Lamar Jackson sat behind what's his face? Sat behind Joe Flacco. And then you also have I think Russell Wilson sat behind somebody as well too. I mean, guys nowadays again thrown into situations and the expectations high and they don't perform. It's like, hey, what's going on? I mean, look at what's happened with Justin Herbert and Trevor Lawrence. Those guys are going to year 3, year 4, and expectations high. Yet they still haven't delivered. I wouldn't be surprised if Mac Jones is competing for a spot with Trevor Lawrence. Like they competed in college. So it'll be interesting to see what the expectations are, what they look to do with Jacoby Brissett. I said Brisket, right? Jacoby Brissett. But yeah, I expect them to go and compete and maybe compete with that star, whoever they pick up. So yeah, interesting dynamic there. But yeah, we'll see what the Patriots do. I like Derek Mayo as a quarterback. I'm happy that the Patriots franchise is starting to maybe turn the tables when it comes to the culture there. Both Boston teams have black coaches, which is unique, and we never ever expect that to happen. Next, of course, now we got some news coming out of Cincinnati. Big news. We saw earlier that T. Higgins did request a trade. We knew that they wouldn't be able to retain Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and be able to pay them, which I like because we get to see Joe Burrow without all these amazing weapons, and then also Jamar Chase, how well he does, not always seeing single coverage. I want to see Jamar Chase against maybe a shifted coverage towards him, more catered defenses towards secondaries towards what he's capable of doing. Since Jamar Chase has been in the league, he's reaped the benefits of having pretty much a number one on the other side of him than a good slot guy who had 1,000 yards, Tyler Boyd, where you can't just key on one guy. So it'll be interesting to see. I really want to see how Jamar Chase evolves as a receiver, much like CeeDee Lamb did this year. I think he took a step in his game when it comes to being that complete receiver. If Jamar Chase can do that in that offense, as well as Joe Burrow, without having that number 2 receiver, and we don't know who's going to step up, but they may have a number 2 that can step up as well too. But having 2 number 1s essentially, how well does Joe Burrow perform in this offense, and how well he performs as a quarterback. He's been equipped with everything since he's been in the league. Not only that, Joe Mixon. They released Joe Mixon, so now your running game, your top top receiver, if not your top receiver, is gone. Now you have to figure out how to really play football. How good is Joe Burrow without everything that's been equipped around him, and we're going to see how good Joe Burrow is. Joe Burrow has reaped the benefits not only in his contract but his numbers and his offense from playing with exceptional players. Right? Joe Burrow has had Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase. These are all 1,000-yard receivers at once in their career, close to when they played together. At the same time, he had a solid running game in Joe Mixon and an offensive-minded coach. Joe Burrow has had everything he's needed to be successful in this league. And I think that now we see some players tapering off. We're going to see how good he really is in the instance this year when he's equipped with less. Because we didn't give Lamar Jackson grace when he had nothing. We expected Lamar Jackson to play like an MVP and everything we nitpicked. But Joe Burrow has had three number one receivers who had 1,000 yards in their career, a solid running game, and a great offensive scheme. And he's performed well, but he hasn't won. And I think that without that, we're going to have to look at him much in a deeper critical light than we have been before, and we've given him a lot of grace. So I talked about Joe Burrow a couple of years ago. You guys slaughtered me. We're gonna see. I like Joe Burrow. I think he can do well. I think he has a mind to do well. But we're gonna see what happens. We're gonna see what happens with Joe, as well as them releasing Joe Mixon, who I think is a solid running back. They picked up Zach Moss. I mean, is that replacing Joe Mixon? No. They probably just didn't want to pay Joe Mixon. So Cincinnati kind of cut their losses where they felt they needed to be and wanted to kind of go lean into the season. So a funny story I think coming out of New York. I think it's hilarious. New York has picked up Tyrod Taylor, and this is funny to me because Tyrod Taylor. If you think of Aaron Rodgers and you think of his complete opposite, you have Tyrod Taylor in everything. You have a certified Hall of Fame quarterback. You have a journeyman quarterback who traditionally is a backup in this league. Been a backup in this league. You have a guy who is completely conservative, and you have a guy who has more liberal views towards social economical issues in America. These two, I don't know who the GM is for the New York Jets, but they really weren't thinking this thing over when they're going to put Tyrod Taylor, who is pretty much an activist, versus Aaron Rodgers, who is pretty much a conservative, I guess, anti-vaxxer, if you want to put it. It's gonna be. I would pay to see how those conversations go when Tyrod Taylor is inviting Aaron Rodgers to a event for black social economic equality. What does Aaron Rodgers say? Or Aaron Rodgers is telling his philosophy about him going into isolation to Tyrod Taylor. So you got a guy from Newport News and you got a guy from California who's pretty much been. And don't be wrong, Aaron Rodgers I think is one of the best quarterbacks to play this game. But I just think it's gonna be funny to see how long that this locker room stays fit. I'm not sure what their reasoning was getting Tyrod Taylor. But I would pay to see what that locker room's like with Tyrod Taylor and Aaron Rodgers. So yeah, we'll see what happens with the Jets. Like I said, it is what it is. You know what I'm saying? Interesting story coming out of the NAACP. They asked black student athletes to reconsider Florida colleges. This is something that I've been probing and picking at a little bit. But the NAACP asked black student athletes to reconsider their decision to attend public college and university in the state of Florida. In response to the University of Florida and other state schools eliminating diversity, equity, inclusion programs. In the letter, NCAA President Charlie Baker and addressed to current perspective. He addressed current perspective student athletes, NAACP, and Derek Johnson. This is not about politics. It's about the protection of our community, progression of our culture, and most of all, it's your education and your future. Last year, Florida Gov. Rob DeSantis signed a bill that prohibits the use of state funds for DEI programs. As a result, the University of Florida announced on March 1st it had closed the Office of Chief Diversity Officer, eliminating 13 full-time DEI positions were typically accompanied by minorities, and 15 administrative appointments that halted DEI-focused contracts with outside vendors. Other in-state schools such as North Florida, Florida International have also recently shuttered the DEI program. NFL Hall of Famer Emmitt Smith also spoke out, voicing his disgust at UF's decision and asking minority athletes at UF to be aware and vocal about the decision. So basically what's happening is this, and I know a lot of you guys don't really care about politics or who's running for office, But essentially, nationwide, there was a bill that got passed, specifically in Florida, that said, hey, we're not going to use essentially affirmative action or equality when it comes to considering blacks and minorities for position or for admits in the school. Basically saying, if we have a qualified white person or we have a qualified black person, we're going to admit a certain amount of black people into this school because we want to achieve diversity. Therefore, you'll see a lot of white people complain about my kid has all the scholastics, he has all the grades, but he can't get into this school because there's a certain amount going for black people in the school to achieve the diversity. The dynamic and history behind it is that if there's more diversity, there's more creation, there's more innovation, there's more problem solving, just because we're getting different perspectives, which in studies and in nature is true. If you have people from different backgrounds collaborate together, work together, you're working in a cohesive environment that's reflective to not only society, but also to the advancement of society. So this is why DEI was important. How do we be inclusive and include everybody in the decisions that we're making, not just for one demographic? This program was shut down, and the DEI programs typically supported and helped minorities get into schools. The NAACP, so basically this is what's happening in Florida. And for college athletes, understand that shuttering or eliminating a DEI position or a position at school means there's less inclusiveness or activities or cultural activities that may fit your demographic, especially those in Florida. We know most of the talent, a lot of talent comes from Florida, comes from the South. Pretty much most of the talent that we see, the best athletes do come from Florida. And it's no surprise the best athletes come from Florida. Predominantly black athletes come from Florida. And these Florida schools do offer them quite a bit. But I think that's something to be aware of as a black athlete. If you're going to step on campus and you don't see something that's reflective of culture in itself, as well as culture, your culture, it may be a challenge. One thing though about it is, as black athletes, you're excluded from the masses of being a regular student. When you're a black athlete at a SEC or even at Florida school or just at any school, you get treated to the point where it's almost oblivious to it because you're an athlete. People are going to say hi to you. They're going to respect you. They're going to treat you well. You always have that prestige wherever you go. But there are some deep things that are very important when it comes to going to a school and then not seeing that. So NAACP, I think it's important to consider. I work at an institution. I'm not sure if Maryland's doing anything like that. I have to look that up. But I know that this is something that has been nationwide, that has shaken up a lot of institutions when it comes to accepting minority talent, to the point where, okay, we have to accept them. Now it's like, okay, we don't have to accept them. Let's change everything up. So black student athletes, just pay attention to that. That is something to take a look at in Florida, that may affect your decision and how your culture is on campus. So, yeah. Next, interesting story about old Tiki Prescott. As my son would say, Dak is trash. But Dak is in response. He's accusing a woman of a plot to extort $100 million from Dak Prescott. So according to the suit filed by Texas Collin County, Prescott is seeking monetary relief in excess of $1 million, as he committed to donating as such any relief to the Joyful Heart Foundation, an organization like a like-minded organization. Prescott received a letter from Arlington, Texas attorneys Bethel and Yoel Zephy on behalf of women accusing Prescott of sexually assaulting her in February 2007, according to the suit. The letter stated, despite the tragic events, she is willing to forego pursuing criminal charges, along with disclosing her information to the public in exchange for compensating her mental anguish she has suffered. The woman's damages are valued a sum of $100 million. Now, we know Dad can pay that. Of course, ESPN is not naming the woman victim because she says he's a victim of sexual assault. So basically, the woman's not going after uh, him criminally; they're going after him financially. The thing is, whenever someone goes after somebody financially, are they really going after? Is it really about what happened, or is it about the money? Right. So this is why Dak's saying he's extorting him. ESPN is not naming the woman because she's a victim. In a statement, Prescott's attorney Levi Catherine called it a completely fabricated story. Mr. Prescott, a father to a baby girl, has great empathy for survivors of sexual assault. He fervently believes that all perpetrators of such crimes should be punished to the fullest extent of the law. To be clear, Mr. Prescott has never engaged in any non-consensual sexual conduct with anyone. Lies hurt, especially malicious lies. We will allow the defendant and her legal team to profit from this attempt to extort millions from Mr. Prescott. What we see is basically, I guess, a woman accusing Dak Prescott of sexual assault. He said it was consensual. These things, however they play out, this is not news you want to hear from Dak, especially when, your offensive linemen are taking pay cuts. But, we'll see how it plays out. I'm not putting, you don't want to put anything past. You want to take sexual assault serious. At the same time, Dak is staying 10 toes deep on what he says did or did not happen. Essentially, it's like it was consensual relations, and she's trying to get back at him, and she says it was something different. One of the attorneys, Bethel Zephy, issued a statement on later Monday, alleging that Dak Prescott had acknowledged that having been with the woman the night of her on the assault 2017. So. We'll see what happens. This is news that comes out. When I say this, I hope the truth comes out. I hope no one got hurt in it. I hope the sexual assault didn't happen. Like I say, you always pray for the best to come out in the situation. So, that's pretty much it. I think that's pretty much it. I think we covered it all. There's no other topics that I really want to discuss and talk about. Thank you guys for tuning in to check me. Trying to stay up on this. I know it's another long one, but NFL free agency is just getting started, and this is our kind of like off season, our off season. Our off season end season to watch and listen to more football news. So, but thank you guys for tuning in. I definitely appreciate it. If you're not subscribed, subscribe. You guys have a good one.